While BYU has top-tier talent at the quarterback position led by Bear Bachmeier right now and Ryder Lyons coming in the near future, the Cougars know you can never stockpile enough top talent.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about Tradon Bessinger. Why in the world is a guy coming to officially visit BYU when you have guys like Bear Bachmeier, Ryder Lyons, among others, already at the quarterback position? Well, I think history tells us BYU needs as many dudes as they can possibly find. We'll get into that. Then we're going to talk BYU basketball. Tim Lacombe rejoins the show to talk about AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders. What does he expect from BYU's twin offensive powers going into this upcoming basketball season? You'll hear from him. And we'll finish up today's show with part two of a conversation. Played part one yesterday with Tiger Bachmeier, brother of Bear Bachmeier. Talks a lot about what he's experienced so far playing at BYU, and obviously he's a relationship with his brother. We'll get to all of it ahead on today's show, and it's all brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers right now can get $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, so let's dive right in on today's show. If you did not see this earlier this week, Tradon Bessinger, the star quarterback at Davis High School in northern Utah, announced that he has decommitted from Boise State. I know there are a number of you out there who are everydayers who were very quick to comment when that came out saying, hey, Jake, wasn't this kid that told you straight to your face on this very podcast that he was locked in with Boise State? Yes, he did say that. And you can go back and find that podcast. But the simple fact of life is when it comes to the situations these young men find themselves in, when presented with other opportunities, why wouldn't you do the prudent thing and back off of a pledge and make sure it's the right option for you? Because if you haven't been paying attention, despite being committed to Boise State, Tradon Bessinger added offers from others, programs like BYU, UCLA, Iowa, Minnesota, etc. Numerous Power 4 programs. And while Boise State's got a very, very strong track record, the simple fact of life is the Boise State Broncos are a G6 program, whereas the other programs I just mentioned, BYU among them, are Power 4 programs. Young men want to play at the highest levels of football they possibly can play at, and the star of Tradon Bessinger has only gotten bigger and brighter this season as he's led Davis High School to near the top of the 6A ranks here in the state of Utah. He's an absolutely phenomenal quarterback. Huge frame, 6'5", 200+ pounds. He's got good athleticism, but most importantly, he's got a live arm, can make all of the throws, it feels like. And that's why BYU, among others, has thrown their hat into the ring to see if they can land this young man and bring him into their football program. Well, you're probably thinking at the same time, well, Jake, they've got Bear Bachmeier here. You've got Ryder Lyons, who's not too far away. You have also guys like an Enoch Watson, who is home off of his mission now and is expected to enroll in January, competing for playing time at a pretty talented position, which really only one player can ultimately play at. So why, you're probably asking, would Tradon Bessinger pick BYU? Well, every player has their own individual reasons why. But the thing about it is, quarterbacks are a different breed by and large, and they are guys, speaking pejoratively, using the term guys, that have a self-belief that goes beyond just believing that, hey, I'm the dude. No, they know deep in their soul that they are different. And that is what sets these players at quarterback apart. And I'm not saying that other football players don't have this. I'm just telling you, quarterbacks have a unique personality, especially the ones who succeed and play at a high level. I believe that Tradon Bessinger would be a fantastic addition to the BYU football program because all he does is make BYU's quarterback room that much stronger. And guess what? When a position group is as strong as BYU could have with the likes of a Bear Bachmeier, a Tradon Bessinger, a Ryder Lyons, an Enoch Watson, an Emerson Guilman, on down the list, the iron sharpens iron analogy shines through more and more in that circumstance, and the best player, simply put, will play. Will obviously cause some guys to reevaluate and hit the transfer portal most likely. Yes, because as I said, the quarterback position in football, while it's probably the single most important position in the sport, It's also the position where fewer guys play per capita than any other position because you don't rotate, honestly, at quarterback if you can help it. Really only injury or ineffective play are why you make moves at that position. So Tradon Bessinger announced his decommitment from Boise State. He announced he's going to make an official visit to BYU on November 15th when BYU takes on TCU. And I'm looking forward to seeing if he ultimately picks BYU in this race. This past weekend, he was out in it was Iowa City or wherever the University of Iowa is at, checking out the Hawkeyes. He is doing his due diligence, and I respect it immensely. And I also think that the fact that he's interested in BYU screams to me that he is unafraid of coming in and competing for playing time at BYU, even with a five-star prospect, the likes of Ryder Lyons, also probably moving right into the situation alongside him in terms of quarterback competition. Emerson Godwin's going to go on a mission for a couple of years after this season. Well, he returns, and Tradon Bessinger, in theory, would be in the mix there right alongside him and Ryder Lyons. Enoch Watson, as I mentioned, is home off of a mission and going to enroll in January. He's got 4 or 5 years staring him in the face in terms of playing at BYU. And, oh, by the way, the current quarterback is a true freshman. So while it may appear that there's a logjam at the position, and if you look at it on its head, yes, that is what the case is. These are young men who are coming to BYU to play football, but they also have their other reasons as maybe to why they picked the Cougars as well. A lot of guys are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they want the faith-based education that BYU offers in many respects. They want to be among a student populace of like-minded individuals. There's so many things that go into play when it comes to picking a program for these young men that I can't fault a guy like Tradon Bessinger for looking at BYU and thinking, hey, that's something I need to go check out and see what they've got to offer me. The other thing is it shows that BYU, despite having a glut of talent at the quarterback position, still believes that bringing in more top-tier talent only makes them all the better. I've seen it pointed out elsewhere, and I'll just reiterate it here. At one point, the University of Alabama had Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, and who am I thinking of? Oh, Jalen Hurts, all on the same roster. Those are 3, in most cases, starting caliber quarterbacks in the NFL. Mac Jones is probably going to be a starter again at some point in the relatively near future. All 3 of those guys were on the very same roster at the University of Alabama. If the Crimson Tide can work that out, why can't BYU? So mad respect to a guy like Tradon Bessinger for considering BYU. And quite frankly, I'll just be selfish right now. I would love nothing more than to see him commit to BYU and sign with them here in early December, because I think he would only enhance the quarterback position for BYU and make the guys in that room have to up their game to another level to fend him off in terms of his chase for playing time as a BYU Cougar. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk about BYU basketball. Had a great chat, as I mentioned. I played part 1 of it yesterday with former BYU assistant coach Tim Lacombe. Well, we talked a lot about what the expectation levels, the hype about this BYU basketball team going into the season was. We talked about that yesterday. Well, the 2 guys who are going to carry most of the headlines this season are AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders, and to a lesser level, probably the trio of those 2, including also Rob Wright III. Well, Tim had some great thoughts on what he expects from a guy like AJ DeBonsa, and obviously what Richie Saunders has done to enhance his game. And we'll get to that conversation coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game and want to ride the hot hand you're watching of the game you're checking out, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks, and probably could have made a little bit of money last night with the Utah Jazz. Even though they fell flat, there was probably odds on them coming back where they only lost by 2 last night when they were down by as much as 22 points. Plus, you can combine all of your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, as they are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, please subscribe, rate, and review. I'm going to tell you guys right now on YouTube, see my finger pointing right here? There's a little thumbs up button right there. Hit that, like the show. It helps the algorithm, helps us build this audience. And as always, thank you for your support of Locked On Cougars, because can't do it without you. So honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all all of your endless support. All right, let's talk BYU basketball. And as I mentioned yesterday, we talked with Tim Lacombe in part one of what I think will be probably like a 5-part series here. We'll put it all together in one giant interview for you guys soon enough once we play all these segments. But I had a great chat with Tim about the BYU basketball program. Now, being a former assistant coach at BYU, he's got a unique insight as to how things work at Brigham Young University. And he understands the dynamic of having a star freshman going up with a rising senior. And that's what BYU's dynamic at play here this season is with AJ DeBonsa, the premier prospect maybe in the entire country. He said it himself. He believes that he would be picking himself if you were GM to be the number one pick in next year's NBA draft. Well, you have that. Then you also have this guy named Richie Saunders, who's a fifth-year senior, the most improved player in the Big 12 a season ago, a first-team all-conference honoree. Well, they're going to steal most of the headlines for this BYU basketball team. And Tim and I talked a lot about those two. And here's that part of that conversation we had right here on Locked On Cougars. I want to ask you about AJ DeBonsa because he's obviously the headliner. And I call him the big three, him, Richie Saunders, and Rob Wright III. It feels like that trio is going to kind of power this team. But I want to start with AJ. One of the top prospects in the class, Tim, and I'm sure that you thinking back on your time recruiting at BYU, the idea of landing a kid of his caliber has got to be in some ways mind-blowing to you. But what do you make of him? What do you make of him as a player?
Well, he's obviously got all the tools. I mean, I think you pull some highlight clips and run some of just what he's done in 2 games, in exhibition games, and he definitely catches your attention. And really this year for him is going to be about much like the guys, like I'm watching, a guy like Sensabaugh in year 2 for the Jazz and Walter Clayton and Ace Bailey in year 1. And, these things are not linear, these tracks. And, everybody thinks, hey, it's going to happen, like he's going to go out there and it's going to be 30 a night like clockwork. And, he may be that good, but every freshman I've seen's had some down times. And so it's really, everything about you gets tested in this whole process. And, the good thing about AJ is he's not like we talk about Ace. Ace was out there with Dylan and a bunch of other guys. This team, there's a great supporting cast. So while I'm with you on those big three, it's really big that he has a big three to lean on in his freshman year, and he doesn't have to go out there and, do it all himself.
What do you think, if anything, will be the biggest adjustment for him as he goes through what appears to probably be his only college season?
I think the level that you've got to prepare for a game on the defensive end, and really, with guys that can affect you, game plans for AJ, game plans start being built around him. Mm-hmm. And after 7 games, everybody says, hey, this tendency, he likes to do a lot. He likes to, for instance, go right and pull up after 2 dribbles. So people start to create the scouting report with every game that you play. And so to have that level of scrutiny on your game and trying to take away all the things you do well to make you do things that you don't do so well, and trying not to fall into the trap of doing those other things, being a ball mover at that point if you take away your strengths. And so just to see him develop, fully as a player through the good, obviously there's going to be a lot of that and some of the tough stuff, but to keep everything in perspective, I think that's going to be the most important thing for AJ.
Do you believe he is capable of being an All-American top player in the country, that level of player overall?
Oh yeah, for sure. He's got the physical tools to do that. And there's some guys that just, their ball goes in the hoop. Coach Rose used to say that, Timmy, try to go find guys whose ball goes in the hoop. I don't want guys that can shoot it. I want guys that can make it.
Yeah.
And AJ does a great job, obviously, at all 3 levels of scoring the basketball. So I think he'll find his way through, that. But I think, locking into a defensive game plan, being able to have the trust of your teammates. It was really neat the other night in year 3, very pivotal possession of the game on the line. And Keontae George took a charge to get the ball back. That was huge because, last couple of years, it was probably a 50-50 play, whether he'd be in the right spot, but he is so focused and locked in. He was right there to take the charge. And so those are the things you look for in young players, developing good habits on not just the offensive side, but on the defensive end as well.
The story of Richie Saunders is one that I think needs like its own movie in some ways. Because think about this kid. He came in after his mission, becomes like kind of this glue guy, and then emerges this past season, Tim, as a all Big 12, most improved player in the entire conference. Like he has transformed himself in the time he's been at BYU, and it looks like he is on track to have maybe his finest season in a BYU uniform. Where do you think he has improved the most?
I think the thing that stood out to me the first time I saw Richie working out, somebody told me about him and that he was playing for the Mountain Stars, which was Marty Hawes' organization. And so I made a trip down there and in Vegas and went and found their gym and, was blown away more than anything by how hard he played. I mean, I think his speed at that point was 100. He was 100. If going as hard as you could was 100, he was going 100, and he was going 100 every play. He was simply just beating guys to plays, beating guys to balls, and his shot was nothing like it was now. It was good, but what stood out to me more than anything, and I knew that you could tailor around a really good physique and a good mind, that the skills, all that stuff was going to come. But that's what stood out to me was how hard he played given the spot he was in the summertime.
What about him has impressed you the most just during his college career to this point?
Just the big plays he's made time after time and seems pretty unflappable in the moment. I had my idol growing up was former Cougar Devin Durant, and I got to see Devin play, his senior season pretty up close and personal. He became a really good friend of our family, and so he would bring me to games, and he was kind of in the running for leading scorer in the NCAA that year. And like I talked about with AJ, teams threw everything at him. They box and won him, and they'd trap him, make him give the ball up, but he never pouted. He never got flustered. He just kept playing. And I feel like, in some essences, that's kind of what I'm most impressed with Richie. He's made such big plays, both offensive and on the defensive end. He's been a part of some huge wins in the program. And then the run they went on last year, and the fact that he's now Captain Tater Tot. Every time I see him, I tell him I need a little Tater Tot cash. But it just boggles my mind. It's a pretty neat thing. So I'm excited to see him. And I do think that'll be a kid that can play in the NBA, because I think scouts will see the same thing I saw when I was, looking at him for the level we were recruiting him to.
What do you think speaking of like going to the next level, what does he need to show this year that you think will sell NBA teams more and more on him?
I don't think he has to be like anything more than he is. I think just to maintain that standard, again, making the right play, being somebody really pesky, that can really defend. You don't have to look very far in a guy who's stuck and gotten paid and is now in the starting lineup in Cleveland, Sam Merrill, who is just a guy who's smart enough to understand what his role, was going to be in the NBA, and then just played to it. Didn't try to, invent his game or expand his game for the sake of doing it. He understood, hey, if I can really continue to shoot the three and be somebody they can count on the defensive end, there's a place for me in this league. And that's the total truth. And I think Richie kind of fits into that same little area there.
A big thank you to Tim Lacombe for spending some time. As always, we'll have more from that conversation coming up on tomorrow's edition. And quite frankly, we'll probably get a weekend edition out of me this weekend as well, with BYU basketball facing off against Villanova on Monday. So stay tuned for a lot of content through this coming weekend. And it's crazy to think tomorrow is Halloween. But as always, thank you for being with us, and we'll have plenty of content to get you through the bye weekend for the BYU football program, and as BYU basketball gears up for what should be a very, very exciting season, and looking forward to seeing what AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders are capable of doing with this BYU basketball team. We'll have more from Tim on our next few editions of the podcast. Coming up next, part 2 of a conversation we had with Tiger Bachmeier. Now, he talked a lot about his off-the-field interests yesterday. Well, we take the conversation on the field in part 2 of this conversation. What has been his experience so far at BYU as a football player? Well, he explains next, right here, exclusively on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Now, Mazda is here for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anybody else as of August 2025. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every single detail, from the metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery and literally anything in between that your heart desires with your Nissan vehicle. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost every season. With snow on the way here in the state of Utah very soon, that is a great thing to have in your back pocket. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's all courtesy of your friends over at Mazda, where they like to say, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. Get the inside scoop on everything I'm hearing about BYU football, and get it coming to your phone in the form of a text message. You can fire back with thoughts of your own, have one-on-one text conversations with myself. And as always, it's just $5 a month to be a part of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. And if you want a free 14-day trial, well, you get that as well before you charge a single penny. So click the link in the show notes below and join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right, let's talk with Tiger Bachmeier. Now, we had part 1 of the conversation yesterday, had a great chat with him about his off-the-field pursuits. And trust me, they are varied. Mandarin Chinese. He's a pilot. He likes to play the guitar. We've already seen that him and his brother and his extended family going and playing for senior citizens in the greater Provo area. He is a man of many passions and pursuits, but he's also pretty darn good football player. And in this part 2 of this conversation that we had with him, we talk about his play on the field, and more importantly, in some people's minds, his relationship with his brother Bear, who's the star quarterback for BYU. So here's part 2 of the conversation with Tiger Bachmeier right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.
What's it been like playing here as a football player?
Yeah, I can't even explain how grateful I am to see 65,000 people in the stands. Mm-hmm. When you can get that done in the stadium, it makes actually playing a whole lot easier. It makes showing up to lifts and practices a whole lot easier. Getting to see even the banners around here, like we're just put up. I don't know if you have the camera. Like we just put up those blue, the BYU stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just something about being at this place and being really prideful and confident in our team and ourselves that makes it being fun. Makes it playing here really fun.
In terms of what you want to do in the future, you talk about like taking these little bites at everything to make sure that you're always prepared for it. Like, what does the future hold for you? Do you want to pursue football as long as you can and then venture off into whatever's next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. That's definitely my goal.
Yeah.
It's so close. Everything that I do have planned for my life doesn't rely on such a timeline that football does.
Yeah.
And with the NFL being in my goal, I mean, that's this year or next year, like that timeline, that urgency is something that puts football frontmost on my plans. But I do love entrepreneurship, and as I said, that's something that I'm kind of chipping away with. I have an internship at All In Ventures, a VC close by here, and so I feel like in some point in the future I want to have my own startup. I'm going to have a few apps on the App Store, and like stuff like that is small and it doesn't take away too much of my time, but is interesting that I like to do, is all going to be put towards something big in the future. And actually, Che and Ryder were talking about some statistic that he was reading about. He's like, 1 in 3 students at Stanford is going to be a millionaire. And I was like, I don't know where you're getting your information, because I know 1 in 3 students. I know the other 2 students, and I was like, maybe not.
Well, that's awesome.
But yeah, shout out to Davey. He's my best friend from Stanford.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you about your brother. In your heart of hearts, did you expect him to come in here and be as good as he's been so far?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, like, you don't come in with any of this in. We didn't come with any of this
Yeah.
in mind. I mean, obviously with Jake being the starter
Sure.
beforehand,
Yeah.
I did not foresee this happening now.
Sure.
Happening now, but I foresaw this in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we kind of just like knocked a year off of that that timeline, if you will. So yeah, I definitely saw that coming. Been around him my whole life, and definitely can say that I'm not surprised. But I'm hoping we stay humble and keep fighting for the future.
From my vantage point, he practices a lot of stoicism, like in terms of like not too high, not too low. Is he like that on the field though?
Yeah. It's so weird because I feel like that stoicism is a sensor that he has in the back of his mind when the camera's on him, because he's always smiling and not.
Yeah.
I think there's points where it's turned on, and it's just something that the fans are seeing when it needs to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always happy, always making jokes in the huddle, and I think that's what it is, because we can't see us huddled around
Sure.
each other, but
Yeah.
always make jokes in the huddle, and in the locker room, and it's been fun being with him. It's been fun making those jokes with him, having fun with him.
How does your demeanor change? Like in terms of like you versus him, how does yours different?
Yeah. I have to tell a story because he got pretty mad at me because we were getting ready to get on the bus before going to the hotel, the Marriott last week, and that was, I want to say Friday. So it was Friday around like 4 or 5 o'clock, and he's like, can I have the keys? Because I forgot some stuff at home, so I'm gonna bring it over. And then I was like, oh yeah, they're right here. I'll go home with you. And then I guess I had put the keys in my bag, and so it's been like 5 minutes, and then he's like, all right, let's go. So we pick up everything, and I'm like, dude, where's the keys? I have no idea where the keys are. And so we're looking at them for like 20 minutes, and by that time the buses were already leaving for the hotel.
Yeah.
So we didn't have time to run home, and so he's just kind of in a bad mood. And I'm kind of like joking around. I was like, they'll show up somewhere. And he's like, dude, why are you being like this? Like, we need to find the keys. Like, what are we gonna do? Or check everywhere. And so I get to the hotel room, and then I kind of like throw my bag on the bed, and then the keys pop out, and I guess I hadn't looked in the bag, and so I was like, oh, I found the keys, and Bear turns over really quick, and he's looking for the keys, and I was like, yeah, they're right here. My bad. And so
you guys
it was kind of funny.
So you guys are roommates together then?
Yeah. So at the hotel we're roommates.
Yeah.
At home we're roommates.
Okay.
Yeah, and so at the hotel, home in Utah, home at California, roommates. We've been roommates all our life. Like, sadly, and good thing here, I guess. Sadly,
you guys get
there's some
along
good
though,
things.
obviously, if you've been doing that this entire time though.
Yeah. I'd appreciate if he would use his own razor, but there's some stuff.
Yeah.
Some stuff, some boundaries that we set. But somehow our laundries are mixed together, and I'm fine with that. But it's cool, because I mean, you wouldn't probably see that with your other roommates, like your laundry mixed together. Or
Definitely
whatnot.
siblings. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, Tiger, thanks for the time. It was good to meet you.
Appreciate it, Mr.
And
Jake.
we have a saying in Taiwan. I don't know. You probably heard this. Shinkuni. Have you ever heard that before?
I believe I have. I can't remember what it means.
You're a hard worker.
Hard worker. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think there's a story about reaching before you go up the Great Wall. It's something similar.
Yeah.
About like taking
Step
first
by step,
and then being a hard worker.
Correct.
I can't remember
Absolutely.
the exact saying.
Well,
That's awesome though.
Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah. 谢谢你.
There you have it. Big thank you to Tiger Bachmeier for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. And I'm telling you, very, very thoughtful answers across the board from that kid. And the term I use, shinku, it means like hard worker. And he is absolutely just that. And I'm hoping to see more and more of Tiger on the field as he continues to get more and more engrossed with the BYU football program, and just goes out there and does his thing with his brother, because you can tell they have a very, very strong bond, if not just maybe the most brotherly bonds of all time, because they get after each other, but at the same time, you can tell that they are very, very close knit. All right, so thank you as always for your support of this podcast. It means the world to me. You guys consume as much of it as you do, and as always, please continue to subscribe, rate and review, share with your family and friends. And with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to let people know, hey, there's this BYU content out here that's daily for you guys. Check it out. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, also available on YouTube. And truthfully, make sure that, like I say all the time, make Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And until tomorrow, come back and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.